of these renewable projects, they make some very rich people even richer, and often, not always, at the expense of taxpayers, because these things have got huge... There's so much market manipulation, so much taxpayer funds going in. It's not something that is often commercially viable on its own. And obviously we've seen with these closures, sometimes it's not even commercially viable with some sort of level of government support. So I think there needs to be far more transparency in who is becoming very wealthy or even wealthier than they already are. And I'm talking about Andrew Forestier, I'm talking about the industry as a whole, with these projects, particularly when it's taxpayer funds that are underwriting it. Some of the conditions that they enter into, you can't lose. If the prices drop, then you get topped up. If the prices go up, well, you're the beneficiary. That's not how a market's supposed to work. You're supposed to take a position, take a risk. If it pays off, you benefit. If it doesn't, you lose. And you can't have this sort of socialism, quasi-socialism in the sector.
100%, and that's why I say the Liberals should be opposing everything to do with net zero and renewables, because it is socialism, because we see the subsidies. If you shut the subsidies down today on all the renewables industries, that would be it. It would all be over. But there was talk during the week as well about, in one of these instances, should the person who's benefited from the subsidies and then shuts down the plant be handing back the government's money. We, the taxpayers, have paid you to set this thing up and you've done it, and then 6 months down the track or whenever it is, you go, oh, I don't know.
But these things just happen to be no strings attached, it would seem. They're just handed out. There's no real scrutiny, as Rita points out. There's no requisite requirements on the person who's getting the subsidy to fulfil obligations on their side. I mean, look, Andrew Forrest and his people have said they're doing this because they're redeploying the investment into research and development, but still it's led to job losses.
It's not about Andrew Forrest. No. It's the sector. It's the renewable sector, multi-billion-dollar industry that is... it needs far greater scrutiny and transparency. When you've got this much taxpayer funds going into an industry, you need to know precisely what's happening, particularly because the outcomes have been so disastrous for all of us. So you look at our energy bills, you look at our energy security, you look at all what's coming in the next 10 years, it's pretty dire.
It's just going to get worse and worse. Well, in a similar vein, this story out of Iceland, Climeworks in Iceland, which is one of these carbon capture. Remember the big thing, carbon capture? We're going to capture all the carbon out of the atmosphere and bury it under the ground. This is happening in Australia. There are companies that are set up doing this stuff. Well, the Climeworks in Iceland has only captured just over 2,400 carbon units since it began operations, which is not even enough to cover its own carbon footprint.
The whole notion of it is so absurd.
It's great comedy. That's about all it is, this renewable
it's almost
stuff.
as good as Malcolm's, sending water up a hill and then
push
coming
the water
down
uphill,
the hill.
Push the water uphill.
They were supposed to capture 2,000 doesn't mean anything to me, but they said that they would capture 12,000 carbon units, and it's been about 2,000. They can't even offset their own carbon footprint.
They didn't meet their targets.
No.
Oh, that has a certain ring to it.
Predictions are never out.
Targets. What does that remind you of?
I would love the Greenies, any subset of Greenies that want to pop up, and please actually do some activism about the natural environment, about issues like...
trees and things, birds, koala bears.
Preserving the natural environment, stopping pollution. We've got a number of countries around the world that just dump tons of rubbish into waterways. Do something about that, because most people care about the natural environment, but the entire environmental movement has been hijacked by these grifters who actually don't care for the natural environment because they're happy for the countryside to be covered with solar panels and ugliness that is in no way natural.
Well, you've just given the Liberal Party another great policy. Why don't you out-green the Greens and actually talk about the environment and trees and cleaning the oceans and getting the litter out of the ocean? Why don't you talk about that, Liberal Party, and get rid of the rest of it? Climate change, of course, is to blame for the closing down of numerous events in Sydney. There's been this ban, this Clover Moore, who's been the mayor of the Sydney Council for forever, as far as I can remember. They banned all these outdoor events, like there were noodle markets that were very popular. There are obviously concerts and things in parks. That's all been banned, or the ban is continuing because of climate change.
But guess what, guys? You know what's not affected by the ban? There's special carve-outs for the Mardi Gras.
The Mardi Gras,
Mardi Gras fair. And there's
course.
also a Yaboon festival. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. It's an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander festival. So
they're
because
exempt.
if the ideology doesn't...
Yes.
If the ideology fits, they're exempt from climate change.
Climate change takes a day off on those occasions, and the Mardi Gras,
there's a greater good.
Global warming stops, and also it stops apparently when you have those weekly anti-Israel protests. They'll go through the parks and set up. There's no damage there, but this is serious. I mean, to me, it seems the local council here in Sydney has disproportionate power. This should be a state government issue. If it's costing the state,
all the small businesses that lose out, all those people who love doing the markets, people set up their market stalls. There's a whole massive industry of small business people who miss out on all this. Well done, Clover Moore. Well done, lefties and greenies. You're destroying more of the economy. Great work.